The doorbell rang at 11:47 p.m. On my phone screen, Ethan froze. Only seconds earlier, he had been smiling at me from his hotel room in Portland, promising that the moment his emergency project wrapped up, he would drive back to Seattle and help me with the final wedding rehearsal. He wore a black t-shirt, his hair slightly messy, warm light glowing behind him. He looked tired, gentle, familiar, exactly like the man I had trusted for 3 years. Our wedding was 7 days away. "Who comes to a hotel room this late?" I asked. His smile faltered for half a second. "Probably the front desk. I asked them to send up some sparkling water." He picked up the phone and walked toward the door. What unsettled me was not the explanation. It was what he did next. He did not look through the peephole. He did not ask who was outside. He simply reached for the handle and opened the door as if he already knew exactly who would be standing there. It was not hotel staff. A woman in her early 30s stood in the hallway. She had chestnut hair, a fitted black dress beneath a beige coat, a bottle of wine in one hand, and 2 stemmed glasses in the other. No laptop. No documents. No sign of a business emergency. When she saw Ethan, she smiled like she had arrived somewhere familiar. "Finally," she said. "You took long enough." She stepped inside, tossed her coat over a chair, and slipped both arms around his neck. Ethan did not push her away. He looked down at the phone still in his hand, and every trace of color left his face. The woman followed his gaze. She saw me on the screen. She also saw the timer in the corner showing that the call was being recorded. Instead of letting go, she pressed closer. "So this is Emily?" she asked. Ethan slapped his hand over the camera. The picture went dark, but I heard him hiss, "Vanessa, get out." Now. For one long second, all I could hear was my own breathing. She was not a client he barely knew. She was not room service. She knew my name. He knew hers. And she knew he was getting married in 7 days. When Ethan uncovered the camera, Vanessa was no longer visible. The warmth had vanished from his face. He looked panicked, but even then, he was already building an explanation. "Emily, listen to me. She's a vendor account manager. She came by to discuss tomorrow's meeting. She's been drinking, and she has no sense of boundaries." That was a stupid joke. Nothing more. "You discuss projects with wine and 2 glasses?" "She is staying in the same hotel," he said too quickly. The negotiations went badly, and she thought a drink might ease the tension. I didn't know she would touch me like that. I said nothing. After 3 years, I knew how Ethan lied. He slowed his voice. He frowned as if he were the wounded one. He admitted to a small mistake, then reframed the real betrayal as my overreaction. "Right on cue," he sighed. "I should have kept more distance. That's on me. But we're getting married next week. You can't throw away 3 years because of 5 confusing seconds." My voice came out calmer than I felt. "Why did she know my name?" He paused. "Everyone at the company knows I'm engaged." "Why did she know I was the woman on the screen?" "She saw you." "Then why did she say, 'So this is Emily,' instead of asking who I was?" He had no answer. I ended the call. My phone immediately began to vibrate. Calls, messages, voice notes, one after another. "Please pick up. What you saw is not what happened. I can show you the whole room." She already left. "Do not destroy our wedding over a misunderstanding." That final message cut through the shock. He was not asking whether I was all right. He was not horrified that he had hurt me. He was worried about the wedding. I sat on the living room floor, surrounded by invitation envelopes, place cards, and half-packed guest gifts. Our engagement portrait stood on the cabinet. In the photo, Ethan had his forehead against mine, smiling with such quiet certainty that I had believed I was looking at my future. Now I could only wonder how long he had been acting. I did not cancel the wedding that night. Not because I still intended to marry him. I did not. But the woman in that hotel room might have been only the first piece of a much larger lie. If I told Ethan I had recorded everything, he would erase messages, align stories with Vanessa, and tell our families that I had become unstable before the wedding. I needed the truth before he had time to bury it. I copied the screen recording to my laptop, 2 cloud drives, and an encrypted folder. Then I sent the original file to my younger sister, Leah. She lived 15 minutes away. She was at my apartment in 10. The second she saw me, she wrapped both arms around me. Only then did I realize how badly I was shaking. "We're canceling the wedding now," she said after watching the video. "He can drive straight from Portland to hell." "I will cancel it," I said, wiping my face. "Just not tonight." Leah stared at me. "Why?" I told her what Ethan had been pushing for over the last few months. He was preparing to launch his own consulting firm. My father's company, Carter Group, had tentatively approved a $2 million investment, but the final vote would happen after the wedding. Ethan had also been urging me to add his name to the Seattle apartment I had bought before we met. He said shared ownership would make us feel like a real family. Until that night, I had taken those requests as signs that he finally trusted me enough to build a life together. Now they looked different. "So this may not be only about cheating," Leah said. "It may have been a plan." 3 years earlier, when I first met Ethan at a charity event for local entrepreneurs, he had seemed like the least calculating man in the room. Back then, he was not yet the respected strategy consultant people now praised. He was a recently resigned project manager with no family money and no network to carry him. While other guests crowded around my father to discuss investments, Ethan asked why the community arts program I was building could never keep long-term sponsors. 2 nights later, he sent me a complete partnership proposal. I thought that meant he had noticed the part of me everyone else overlooked. During our first year together, he left his job to build a small advisory business. I edited his business plan, helped shape his brand, and introduced him to his first clients. When cash was tight, he worked from the dining table in my apartment, and I covered 3 months of rent without asking for equity or recognition. He used to say I was the first person who made him believe life did not have to be a fight for survival. That was why I had never suspected he was using me. He had never demanded anything all at once. He had spent 3 years making every request sound reasonable. A joint account was for wedding expenses. Carter Group's investment would help him become independent. Adding his name to my property would symbolize equality. If I had not seen Vanessa at that hotel door, I might have given him everything. Leah turned our engagement photo face down on the table. "You're not doing this alone," she said. "Before you see him, you call me. Do not sign anything. Do not meet anyone connected to him without telling me." I nodded. That was the night I learned that staying calm does not mean you are not breaking. Sometimes it only means you have built enough support around yourself to keep from collapsing. I called Margaret, the attorney who had represented my family for years. She did not tell me what to believe. She gave me 3 rules. Do not illegally access Ethan's private accounts. Do not publish unverified private material. Do not sign anything while I was emotionally overwhelmed. Then she gave me the number of Daniel Ross, a licensed private investigator. The next morning, Ethan sent a long apology. He claimed Vanessa worked for an interior supplier involved in the Portland project. He said she had always been flirtatious, but he had never encouraged her. He swore the visit had been one-sided and unexpected. I did not challenge him. I replied, "I was overwhelmed last night. We can talk when you get home. Keep the wedding plans in place for now." A minute later, he sent a heart and a relieved message about how much he loved me. I could almost see him exhale. That morning, I met Daniel. He made no dramatic promises. He did not offer to hack phones or pull hotel surveillance. He reviewed only information I could legally provide: our joint wedding account, purchases made on a supplementary card in my name, our shared airline and hotel reward accounts, and the travel calendar Ethan had voluntarily synced with me. "Real life is not a detective show," Daniel warned. "We may never know every lie he told. You do not need every lie. You need enough to decide whether this marriage is built on serious deception and whether your finances are at risk." That changed the way I approached everything. I separated the questions into 3 groups: what he had done to our relationship, what he had done with shared money, and what he might have misrepresented to my father's company. The affair alone was enough for me to walk away. But if he had planned to use the marriage to secure investment, credit, and property, I needed evidence that a lawyer and a corporate board could understand. The first financial pattern appeared within hours. Ethan rarely paid hotel bills directly from the wedding account. Instead, he moved money to his personal card and later labeled the transfers as vendor advances or reimbursable travel. Each transaction looked ordinary by itself. On a timeline, they told a different story. Dates from Vanessa's public travel photos repeatedly matched Ethan's transfers and expense claims. Over the previous 10 months, Ethan had taken at least 6 so-called business trips to Portland with no formal meetings on his shared calendar. He had used our airline points to book 2 tickets while telling me he was traveling alone. 3 hotel statements included breakfast for 2 and couples spa services. One of those trips happened on my birthday weekend. That night, Ethan had told me a client's server had failed and he had to work through the night. I waited alone in a restaurant until closing and finally gave my untouched cake to the night staff. The reward account showed that Ethan had spent that weekend with someone else at a coastal resort. For years, I had believed the cruelest part of that memory was that he had not shown up. Now I understood that he had not been trapped at work. He had actively chosen another woman. Daniel did not enter Ethan's private devices. He used public records, legally accessible reservation history, and information from the accounts I owned. The woman was Vanessa Reed, an account manager at Haven Commercial Interiors. Her company had supplied several office projects for Ethan's clients over the past year. Internal emails Ethan had forwarded to me showed that he personally recommended her for the account. Their relationship appeared to have lasted at least 18 months. Daniel found archived copies of photos Vanessa had posted and later deleted. In one, she raised a glass in Napa Valley while the edge of Ethan's watch appeared in the corner. In a ski resort mirror selfie, his coat hung behind her. On her birthday, she posted a diamond bracelet that matched a $4,800 charge from our shared account. Ethan had told me that bracelet was a holiday gift for an important client. The deeper we looked, the clearer the pattern became. He had not been careless. He had been careful in exactly the way practiced liars are careful. He divided expenses, shifted labels, and relied on my trust to stop me from comparing dates. On the 3rd afternoon, an email arrived from an unfamiliar address. The subject line read, "You deserve to know what he told me." It was from Vanessa. She did not begin with an apology. She admitted immediately that she had known Ethan was engaged. But she said he had spent more than a year insisting that our relationship was over in every way that mattered. According to him, the wedding was a formality pushed forward by family expectations and business connections. "He told me you knew how he felt," she wrote. "He said you had agreed that after the wedding you would live separate lives. When I saw your face on that video call, I realized you had never agreed to any of it." She attached screenshots and voice messages. The final attachment was a photograph I had never seen. Ethan sat at the kitchen island in Vanessa's apartment with a bottle of the same champagne we had bought the day we chose our rings. He was looking down at his phone. On the screen, I could make out the seating chart I had sent him that afternoon. Vanessa had added a note beneath the image. "That night he said you were so dependent on him that you could not even arrange guest seating without asking his approval. Then he asked me which clients should sit near the head table. I had to leave the room before I became sick." The affair was devastating. The contempt was worse. I had spent months trying to create a wedding that made both families feel welcomed. He had turned that effort into entertainment for the woman he was sleeping with. Vanessa wrote that Ethan had described me as controlling, emotionally fragile, and protected by family money. He claimed he could not leave because I would collapse and because Carter Group might retaliate against his business. To me, he described Vanessa as unstable, flirtatious, and incapable of respecting professional boundaries. He had not respected either of us. He simply changed the villain depending on which woman was listening. I did not accept Vanessa's evidence immediately. Margaret and Daniel verified phone numbers, timestamps, payment dates, and details that would have been difficult for her to invent. Only after that did I read every message. Each one was worse than the hotel video. Ethan told Vanessa that I was steady, respectable, and built for marriage. She was exciting, unpredictable, and the woman he could not give up. He told her the wedding would secure Carter Group's investment and make his new company eligible for a stronger line of credit. He told her I would add his name to my apartment after the honeymoon. Once his business was stable, he planned to make me initiate the divorce so our families would believe I had failed at marriage, not that he had betrayed me. The most revealing message had been sent 3 days before the Portland trip. "One more week. The wedding is the last step. Once her father signs and the property is handled, I won't have to keep pretending." I sat in my study staring at the words until the screen blurred. This was no longer only an affair. He was preparing to turn our marriage into a transaction, take what he needed, and leave me carrying the blame for its failure. I called Vanessa. She was quiet for a long time after answering. When she finally spoke, the confidence from the hotel room was gone. "You have no reason to trust me," she said. "And I'm not innocent. I knew you two had not officially separated. I chose to believe him because I wanted him to choose me." "Why tell me now?" "Because after the video call, he didn't ask whether you were hurt. He called me and said I had ruined his plan. He ordered me to delete everything and never contact you. That was when I understood he was never planning to choose either of us. He was using both of us." I did not forgive her. I did not tell her it was fine. She had knowingly crossed a boundary, and Ethan's greater cruelty did not erase that. But I also refused to direct all my anger at her. Ethan was the person who had promised me loyalty. Ethan was planning to marry me. Ethan was positioning himself to share my property and benefit from my father's investment. I asked whether she would give a written statement and allow my attorney to preserve the evidence. She agreed. "What if he says everything is fake at the wedding?" she asked. "Then let him say it while you're in the room." The line went silent. "You want me there?" "I'm not asking you to stand on stage. I will not let anyone humiliate you. But if you're willing to hear how he explains himself, sit in the last row." On the fourth evening, Ethan returned to Seattle carrying flowers, champagne, and a new necklace. He walked through the door as if gifts could cover the smell of another woman's perfume. He pulled me into his arms and said he had barely slept because of the guilt. A faint woody fragrance clung to his shirt. It was not mine. "I ended everything with Vanessa," he said. "After the wedding, I'll transfer all unnecessary contact with her company to someone else." I looked up at him. "You spoke to her?" His arms stiffened for a fraction of a second. "She messaged to apologize. I told her she needed to respect boundaries." Another lie. I had already heard Vanessa's recording of their conversation. Ethan had cursed at her, demanded that she delete their messages, and warned her not to speak to me. I did not reveal that. Instead, I asked, "Do you still want to marry me?" He held my face in both hands. His expression was almost flawless. "More than ever." "Why?" "Because I love you," he answered without hesitation. That was when I realized the most dangerous lie was not one with visible cracks. It was the lie a person had repeated so often that deception had become instinct. 2 days before the wedding, my father offered to sign a preliminary investment agreement earlier than planned. Ethan sat at our dining table trying to hide his excitement. He said there was no rush and that the wedding mattered more, but his attention never left the document. I moved the pen away from my father. "The final paperwork can wait until after the wedding," I said. Ethan looked at me. His smile remained warm, but beneath the table his hand closed into a fist. For the first time, I saw real fear in him. The night before the wedding, our families gathered for the rehearsal dinner. It should have been the happiest evening of the week. My father welcomed Ethan into our family. Ethan's parents thanked me for standing beside their son while he built his career. Everyone spoke about the future. Only I knew there would be no future. Ethan held my hand in front of our guests and told the story of starting his business at my dining table. He said none of his success would exist without me. That part was true. But a true past does not cancel a dishonest present. After dinner, he came back to the apartment and asked to review the wedding video scheduled to play during the ceremony. My stomach tightened. The real evidence was not on that computer. Margaret had the originals, and Leah had delivered the final presentation directly to the hotel manager. Still, refusing too quickly might make Ethan suspicious. I opened the harmless version, travel clips, moving day footage, and the celebration after his first major contract. When the video reached the scene of his proposal on the beach, Ethan wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Tomorrow everyone is going to envy us," he said. I watched the version of him on the screen kneel in the sand and hold out a ring. "What would you do," I asked, "if you discovered I had never been the person you thought I was?" He rested his chin on my shoulder. "You think too much. There are no secrets between us." "None." He turned my face and kissed my forehead. "None." Even while lying, his heartbeat did not change. The evidence was now protected: the screen recording, the shared account statements, Daniel's report, Vanessa's screenshots, and the authorized audio recording. I did not build a presentation from hundreds of private messages. I did not include explicit content. Margaret made me narrow it to 4 things that directly explained my decision: the hotel video, 2 shared travel bills, the message about the investment and apartment, and 1 audio clip Vanessa had authorized. Your purpose is to stop a marriage founded on fraud, Margaret reminded me. Not to destroy a human being for entertainment. Show only what is necessary. I agreed. I did not need the entire world to watch Ethan suffer. I only needed him to lose the ability to call me an unstable bride who had run away for no reason. The wedding morning arrived under a clear Seattle sky. The ceremony was set in a glass chapel overlooking the lake. White roses lined the aisle, and sunlight poured through the high windows onto rows of faces I had known most of my life. As my bridesmaids adjusted my veil, Leah stood behind me in the mirror. "Are you sure you want to walk in there?" she asked. "You can leave now." No explanation. For the first time all week, I let myself study my own reflection. I had not slept through a full night since Portland. I had cried in the shower so Ethan would not hear. I had questioned whether I should end everything quietly and spare our parents the humiliation. Every time I wavered, I remembered his message. Once her father signs and the property is handled, I won't have to keep pretending. If I simply disappeared, Ethan would tell everyone I had panicked before the wedding. He would become the devastated groom. He might still find a way back to my father's company, back to the investment, back to the life he had expected me to fund. "I'm walking in," I told Leah. "But I'm not marrying him." The hotel manager met with me before the doors opened. "If you change your mind, say the word and we won't play anything," he said. "Security will be outside the chapel. If anyone becomes aggressive, they'll step in." I thanked him. Leah had placed a simple white suit and flat shoes in a car near the side entrance. She said that however the ceremony ended, I should not have to run through hotel corridors in a heavy gown. Those small preparations mattered. I was no longer a bride waiting for disaster. I was a woman who had already planned her exit. My mother sat in the first row with her hands locked together. I had told her the truth only the day before because I knew she would struggle to hide it. She had not told me to expose Ethan. She had not asked me to forgive him. She had simply asked, "What do you need us to do?" I told her that after I made my decision, I wanted my family to leave without arguing with anyone. Now her eyes were red, but she remained composed. That was when I understood the betrayal had spread beyond me. My parents had welcomed Ethan as a son. Leah had celebrated his birthdays and defended him when he missed family dinners. A lie this large never injures only one person. It damages everyone who trusted the relationship around it. The music began. Guests rose as I entered the chapel. Ethan stood at the front in a dark tailored suit, looking exactly as a loving groom should look, nervous, overwhelmed, his eyes shining when he saw me. Had I not known the truth, I would have believed every expression. Before my father placed my hand in Ethan's, he leaned close. "You can change your mind at any moment," he whispered. I squeezed his hand. I already did. Ethan did not hear. He thought it was a private goodbye between a father and daughter. The officiant spoke about trust, honesty, and choosing the same person every day. Each word felt like a light held over Ethan's hidden life. Then came the personal vows. Ethan went first. He spoke about the charity event where we met, the years we had built together, and the nights he worked at my dining table. He thanked me for believing in him before anyone else did. He called me the person he trusted most and the only woman he would ever choose. People in the audience began to cry. Ethan looked directly at me. "Emily, I promise to be honest with you, loyal to you, and worthy of your trust. Through hardship, illness, and every temptation, I will choose you. Every time." Applause filled the chapel. I accepted the microphone. "Before I make my vows," I said, "I prepared a short video." Ethan's smile paused. "What video?" he whispered. "You'll recognize it." I nodded toward the control booth. The screen first showed photographs from our 3 years together. Ethan relaxed. He assumed this was another romantic surprise. 10 seconds later, the music stopped. The image changed to the Portland hotel room. The doorbell sounded through the chapel speakers. Vanessa appeared with the bottle of wine and 2 glasses. She stepped inside, wrapped her arms around Ethan's neck, and asked, "So this is Emily?" Then the screen showed his face when he realized the call was being recorded. The chapel went completely silent. Ethan turned toward me. "Turn it off," he said. I did not move. The next screen showed the coastal resort bill from my birthday, the 2 airline tickets, the diamond bracelet purchased through our shared funds, and the repeated expense transfers disguised as business travel. The final message appeared in the center of the screen. "One more week. The wedding is the last step. Once her father signs and the property is handled, I won't have to keep pretending." A wave of shocked whispers moved through the room. Ethan lunged toward the control booth, but his best man caught his arm. When Ethan faced me again, the tenderness was gone. "This is fabricated," he shouted. "Emily, someone is manipulating you. She's trying to destroy us." "Who is she?" I asked. He stopped. "I never said Vanessa's name," I continued. "But you already knew exactly who I meant." His face turned gray. Then the final audio clip played. Ethan's voice filled the chapel, unmistakable and clear. "The wedding has to happen. Once the investment lands, I'll have my company. Emily won't find out as long as you stop doing stupid things." The recording ended. A woman stood from the last row. Vanessa wore a navy pantsuit and almost no makeup. She looked nothing like the confident woman from the hotel room. She held her phone in one hand, but her voice was steady. "The recording is real," she said. "He also told me Emily knew the marriage was only for appearances." Ethan spun toward her. "Why are you here? Have you lost your mind?" Vanessa looked at him with no triumph in her expression, only exhaustion. "Because you made each of us believe the other woman was the lie." Ethan turned back to me so quickly it was almost desperate. "Emily, I made a terrible mistake. But the things about the property and investment were just words I used to keep her calm. I was never going to hurt you. We can handle this privately. We do not need to turn our lives into a public spectacle." "You're right," I said. "No one needs to see anything else." I asked the staff to turn off the screen. The chapel fell silent again. "There is only one thing left to say," I told him. "This wedding is over." His parents rose from the front row. His mother looked pale and shaken. "Emily, please," she said. "At least go into another room and talk. Don't make a permanent decision in front of everyone." I did not blame her. I did not raise my voice. "The permanent decisions were not made by me today," I said. "Your son made them over the last 18 months, one lie at a time." Ethan stepped closer and reached for my hand. I moved back. "I will end everything with her," he said. "I will refuse the investment. I do not need the apartment. Give me one chance, and I will prove it." "You are willing to give those things up because you can no longer get them." His eyes filled with tears. "I love you. You love the life you believed I would provide," I said. "I will not spend my life being used to build it." I removed my veil and laid it across the back of a chair. I did not slap him. I did not throw the ring. I did not scream. I did not need to lose control to prove that I had been hurt. I only needed to leave. My father and Leah walked beside me as I moved down the aisle. Behind us, the room filled with low voices. Ethan called my name more than once. I never turned around. Outside, sunlight flashed across the lake so brightly that I had to close my eyes. Ethan's father followed us to the entrance. He did not defend his son. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "We had no idea." I believed him. He and his wife had trusted Ethan too. But their innocence did not create an obligation for me to marry him. "This is not your fault," I said. "But I cannot carry the consequences for him." He nodded and stepped away. Only then did I cry. Not because I had lost a wedding. I cried for the woman I had been when I trusted Ethan without reservation. I cried for the years that had been real to me even if they had not been real to him. I cried because leaving was right and still unbearably painful. Canceling a wedding did not make the consequences disappear. A guest had secretly recorded part of the screen presentation and uploaded it to social media. By the next morning, clips were circulating through local business circles. Margaret immediately sent legal notices requesting the removal of videos that exposed my face, private financial information, and personal messages. Most were taken down quickly, though strangers continued debating whether I had gone too far. Some said I should have handled everything in private. Others said public proof was the only way to stop Ethan from rewriting the story. For several days, I kept searching my own name and reading every opinion. My therapist eventually asked me one question. If every person online believed you should forgive him, would you want to marry him? No. Then their approval is not the foundation of your decision. I stopped searching. The next 2 weeks were not cinematic. They were contracts, deposits, phone calls, and uncomfortable meetings. We could not recover every wedding expense. The venue, caterer, photographer, and travel companies all had cancellation terms. I did not simply declare that Ethan had to pay for everything and watch the money return. Margaret traced each payment and each signed contract. My share of the joint wedding account was returned to me. To avoid a larger civil dispute, Ethan and his parents signed an agreement reimbursing most of the non-refundable costs my family had advanced. I still lost money. It was expensive. It was also far cheaper than a marriage built on fraud. My father withdrew Carter Group's investment proposal immediately. The board later reviewed the materials Ethan had submitted. Even without the personal scandal, several revenue projections were exaggerated and customer conversations had been presented as signed contracts. Reading the report, I recognized the same pattern Ethan had used in our relationship. He created a beautiful future, persuaded people to trust it, and used that trust to skip the steps where he should have been questioned. For a while, I blamed myself for not seeing it earlier. Eventually, I understood that trusting a partner is not a character flaw. The question is what the partner chooses to do with that trust. Margaret did not send the affair video to Ethan's coworkers. We did not publish his private messages. His company was informed only about evidence connected to its business, 14 questionable travel reimbursements, resort expenses charged as client travel, inaccurate expense reports, and an undisclosed intimate relationship with a supplier account manager. The company opened an internal investigation. Ethan was suspended. A month later, he was forced to resign for expense fraud and failure to disclose a conflict of interest. He did not lose his job because he had been unfaithful to his fiancé. He lost it because he had carried the same deception into company records and commercial relationships. Vanessa left Haven Commercial Interiors as well. She and Ethan did not end up together. After the wedding, he blamed her for every consequence, and she finally saw that he had never planned to protect anyone except himself. Months later, she sent me one short email. I cannot ask you to forgive me. Thank you for not turning me into the only villain in his story. I did not reply, but I kept the message. Some harm does not need to be excused. It also does not need to become a lifetime of hatred. Ethan tried to contact me repeatedly. He wrote letters, sent flowers, and once waited outside my office for 2 hours. I refused to see him and had Margaret instruct him to stop all personal contact. His final voice message said he had started therapy and would spend the rest of his life making amends if I allowed him. I listened once and deleted it. Real change may have been possible for him. That did not mean I was required to remain close enough to witness it. The months after the canceled wedding were harder than people expected. Walking away was empowering. Healing was not a straight line. I would see his favorite coffee at the grocery store and reach for it without thinking. I woke some nights imagining Vanessa's face on my screen. I doubted kind words from people who had done nothing to deserve suspicion. Therapy forced me to look not only at Ethan's lies, but at the role I had trained myself to play. For 3 years, I had been the person who solved everything. When his business needed cash, I found it. When wedding planning became overwhelming, I took over. When he disappeared late at night, I wrote the excuse for him before he returned. I had called that unconditional love. My therapist called it carrying another adult's responsibilities until I could no longer see the difference between devotion and self-erasure. Healthy trust, she told me, is not one person repeatedly lowering the standard. It is 2 people protecting the relationship with consistent actions. It took time to accept that I had not been betrayed because I was inadequate. I had not failed to keep Ethan because I gave too little. If anything, I had given too much trust without asking his behavior to support his promises. That lesson did not make me suspicious of everyone. It taught me to evaluate words beside actions instead of using one to excuse the other. I changed the honeymoon tickets and took Leah to Iceland. On a black sand beach, The wind tore through my hair, and for the first time in months, I laughed without checking whether anyone else was comfortable. My father never told me to get over it. At my lowest point, he said, "You are not foolish. You trusted someone who promised to be trustworthy. The shame is not yours." 6 months later, I moved back into the apartment Ethan had once expected to own with me. I did not sell it. I refused to surrender my home because he had lived there. I replaced the sofa, turned the room we had planned as a shared office into my studio, and removed every engagement photograph. In their place, I hung a picture from Iceland. The wind had made a mess of my hair. My coat was half open, my face red from the cold, and I was laughing harder than I ever had in our wedding portraits. People still asked whether I regretted exposing the truth during the ceremony. I thought about it carefully. If I could relive that week, I would still limit what was shown. I would still refuse to make revenge into permanent public humiliation. But I would let the truth appear before I made those vows. That ceremony was not only a romantic promise. It was the final step Ethan expected to unlock investment, credit, shared property, and the credibility of joining my family. I did not destroy his future. I refused to hand him mine while he was lying to me. For a long time, I thought the canceled wedding was the most humiliating day of my life. Now I understand it was the first day I fully stood on my own side. I lost a ceremony. I lost a relationship I believed would last forever. I lost money and time I could never recover. But I kept my home, my name, my dignity, and the decades of life that came after. Losing an unfaithful man is not losing happiness. Seeing the truth before the ring reached my finger was the last exit fate offered me. And I took it.